this is Matt at LSAT Lab, and today's lesson is on point questions in the logical reasoning section. And they're a fairly common question type. About 5% of all logical reasoning questions are point questions. So in today's lesson, what we want to cover are the following things: how to spot one, what's the process for approaching one, what are the different types or flavors of a point question, and then what are the trap answers that you want to be on the lookout for when approaching one. So the way you spot a point question is within the question stem itself. You're looking for text that says something along the lines of what's the point at issue, or what do these people disagree with each other about? You might see that in a couple of different ways and in a couple of different degrees. So we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But you're looking for what these people disagree with each other about, or even what they occasionally agree with each other about. Right? So what is it that these two people are discussing in common? The process for approaching a point question is to find the overlapping statements between the two people that are speaking, and then use that overlap to anticipate what the answer might sound like. Then you want to boil it down to the contending answers, and then use the agree-disagree test in order to make that final assessment about whether or not each person would actually agree or disagree with the provided statement. So here's an example question. Go ahead and give this one a try. Hit pause, and when you think you've got an answer that you like, go ahead and hit play again, and we'll review it together. All right, welcome back. So in this question, what are we looking for? Well, the overlapping statements in this question are the following. Peter is suggesting that most children's stories nowadays don't have clearly immoral characters in them, while Yoko is saying that children's stories still tend to have clearly immoral characters in them. So the overlap is about whether or not children's stories have clearly immoral characters in them. Peter is saying that they don't, while Yoko is saying that they do. So we're looking for something along the lines of whether or not children's stories still have clearly immoral characters in them. Answer choice A says, should be less frightening than they are. Well, this is implied by Yoko's statements. Yoko says that, but now these characters tend not to be the sort that frighten children, and surely that's an improvement. So Yoko would agree with this statement, but Peter doesn't come down on the issue. So this is a half scope, meaning one of the speakers would agree with the statement or disagree with the statement, and the other person doesn't come down on the issue. So Yoko addresses this point, Peter does not, and so this is half scope. Answer choice B says, tend to be less frightening than earlier children's stories were. And again, this is the same issue. Yoko comes down on this issue, but Peter doesn't, so this one's half scope. Answer choice C says, differ significantly in overall quality from earlier children's stories. So Peter is saying, unlike in the past, most children's stories nowadays don't have clearly immoral characters in them. They should, though, right? So if Peter is suggesting that they don't have something that they should, that would suggest that Peter would agree that they differ significantly in overall quality from earlier children's stories because they don't have something that they should. And then Yoko would also agree with this statement. But now these characters tend not to be the sort that frighten children. Surely that's an improvement. Again, so Yoko would say that they're better than they were before, while Peter would say that they're not as good as they were before. But both of these speakers would agree with answer choice C, that they differ significantly in overall quality. So they both agree with this point. That's not the point at issue. We're looking for a claim that one person would agree with and one person would disagree with. So far what we've seen are answer choices that one person would address, but the other person doesn't, or that they both agree with. Even if we get to a claim that they would both disagree with, right, that's still not going to be the point at issue. We need one person to agree with the idea, while one person would disagree with the idea. Answer choice D says, tend to have clearly immoral characters in them. This is exactly what we anticipated, so let's hold on to answer choice D. And answer choice E says, should help children learn the consequences of being bad. Well, now Peter says that they should, though. Children need to learn the consequences of being bad. So Peter addresses this issue. Yoko doesn't, and so that makes answer choice E half scope, and so we can choose D with confidence. So now one of the things to note in this question is that the question itself is asking for what these two people would disagree with each other about, right? And what we're looking for is something that they're committed to disagreeing about, meaning we should be able to prove this very much like we should be able to prove must be true, must be false. And that the degree of certainty in this one should be close to a, yes, I know this for sure. And this makes it a must be true type point question. So some questions on point questions are very, very strict in terms of what we need to be able to prove. We need to be able to prove that one person actively agrees with the claim while one person actively disagrees with the claim. So here's another example. Now notice in this question stem it says, Antonia's and Maria's statements provide the most support for holding that they disagree about whether. Now, notice in the question stem, it's not asking for what we know for certain. It's saying that the statements provide the most support. So the difference between a must be true question and a most supported question on inference questions is playing out here as we look at point questions. Right? In this question, instead of being able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that one person would agree and one person would disagree, we may have a slightly lower level of provability. This is more like a most supported versus most undermined type idea. Go ahead and give this one a try. And once you have an answer that you like, hit play again and we'll review it together. All right, welcome back. So Antonio says that the stock market is the best place to invest your money these days. Although it is often volatile, it provides the opportunity to make a large profit quickly. And Maria says, I agree that the stock market provides the opportunity to make large profits quickly, but one is just as likely to take a huge loss. I think it is better to invest in savings bonds, which provide a constant, reliable income over many years. Now, notice what Maria is suggesting. It's a recommendation. I think it is better to invest in savings bonds. While Antonio is saying that the best place to invest your money these days is in the stock market. So what they disagree about is what the best place is to invest your money. Antonio is saying that it's the stock market. Maria is saying that it's savings bonds. What they disagree with each other about is where is the best place to invest your money. Okay, so now we have the disagreement identified. We can move into the answer choices. A says that the stock market is often volatile, but provides the opportunity to make a large profit quickly. Well, in this case, they both agree with this idea. Antonio says, although it is often volatile, it provides the opportunity to make a large profit quickly. And Maria says, I agree that the stock market provides the opportunity to make large profits quickly. So answer choice A is something that they would both agree with. And so it's not the pointed issue. Answer choice B says, savings bonds can provide a large return on one's investment. Well, does either one of them agree with this statement or address it at all? It doesn't look like it's being supported by either or rejected by either. So this one's simply just unsupported, meaning it's not addressed by either specifically. Answer choice C says, the stock market provides the opportunity for an investor to make a constant, reliable income over many years. Well, now, Maria says that the stock market provides the opportunity to make large profits quickly, but one is just as likely to take a huge loss. So Maria would disagree with this statement. Maria comes down on this issue. But Antonia doesn't bring it up, doesn't talk about the reliability of the income coming in from the stock market. So this one is only half scope. One person would disagree, but the other person doesn't come down on it. Answer choice D says, it is safer to invest in savings bonds than to invest in the stock market. And Maria would definitely agree with this claim, but Antonia doesn't come down on the issue. So again, this is half scope. Answer choice E says, it is preferable to pick an investment offering a reliable income over a riskier opportunity to make a large profit quickly. And Maria is suggesting that it's preferable to pick an investment offering a reliable income, while Antonia suggested it's preferable to pick an investment, a riskier opportunity to make a large profit quickly. So yes, this is something that they would disagree with each other about. And notice the word preferable. That matches up very well with the language inside of each of their recommendations. Maria is saying that it's better to invest in savings bonds, while Antonia is saying that the stock market is the best place to invest your money. So there's a level of subjective recommendation going on in both of their claims. Answer choice E is the pointed issue between these two speakers. All right. Now, remember, that was a most supported version, meaning sometimes you'll be able to prove beyond a shadow of doubt what they agree with each other or disagree with each other about. Sometimes it'll just be simply supported by the information. And that degree of certainty is really important. Just like you wouldn't treat a most supported question the same way you would treat a must be true question. When you're on a point question and you notice that the question stem is talking about what is most supported versus what they're committed to disagreeing with each other about, that has a really important impact in terms of how much you can prove that they disagree with each other about this particular claim. So in terms of the frequency of both, about 70% of point questions are asking for what is most supported by the statements, and about 30% are asking for what is absolutely true given the statements, meaning that they're committed to disagreeing with each other about something versus the statements provide the most support for the idea that they disagree with each other about something. And so pay attention to this degree issue because it can definitely trip you up as you're answering question after question. All right, so here's another example. Go ahead and give this one a try. When you've got an answer that you like, hit play again. We'll review it together. All right, welcome back. Notice the difference in this one. The dialogue in the question stem, the dialogue provides the most support for the claim that Pauline and Roger agree that. So in this case, we're looking for what the two speakers agree with each other about. So what's the overlap between these two speakers? Well, it's not actually stated, right? Remember, the dialogue provides the most support for the claim, meaning we won't necessarily be able to prove this one beyond a shadow of a doubt. And the right answer doesn't actually come from within their statements, but almost as an assumption of their statements. In order for their arguments to work, they need to be resting on an assumption. It almost plays like a necessary assumption of both of their arguments. So Pauline is saying that some environmentalists claim that for the salmon to be saved, the hydroelectric dams on the river must be breached. But if the dams are breached, given the region's growing in population and booming industry, electrical costs will skyrocket. Basically, we need this energy. If we tear down the dam, we're in big trouble. Roger's saying the dams are already producing electricity at optimal capacity. So regardless of whether they are breached, we will have to find additional energy sources for the region. Okay, so Roger's basically saying, hey, we're going to have to find additional energy sources anyways. Okay, so what do these two speakers agree with each other about? Well, they're agreeing that there's a need for electricity, that there's a certain demand for electricity. They agree about the demand that's currently being placed on electricity, or maybe even about the demand that will continue to exist in the near-term future. Answer choice A says production from other energy sources cannot be increased in the near future to compensate for electricity production lost by breaching the dams. Well, Roger would definitely disagree with that idea, but Pauline would agree with that idea. So this is something that one person would agree with and one person would disagree with. This would be right if you were working on a disagreement question, but it's wrong on an agreement question. Answer choice B says there will be no significant decrease in demand for electricity in the region in the near future. Well, in order for Pauline's argument to work, if the dams are breached given the region's growing population and booming industry, electrical costs will skyrocket. That depends on assuming that there's not going to be a significant decrease in demand for electricity in the region in the near future. And Roger has that same assumption embedded inside of his argument. So regardless of whether they are breached, we will have to find additional energy sources for the region. That depends on assuming that there's not going to be a significant decrease in demand for electricity in the region in the near future. So let's hold on to answer choice B. Answer choice C says if the dams remain in service but do not operate at optimal capacity, well, Roger's talking about them operating at optimal capacity. So regardless of whether they are breached, we will have to find additional energy sources for the region. That does not mean that electrical costs in the region will rise. Roger's suggesting that maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. Depends on whether we're able to find additional energy sources. So nobody actually agrees with this claim. This is simply unsupported. Answer choice D says some environmentalists who advocate saving the salmon believe that the goal overrides concerns about electrical costs. Well, Pauline addresses what those environmentalists believe, but Roger doesn't. And so this is, again, half scope. Answer choice E, finding additional energy sources will not decrease the electrical costs in the region. This is very much like answer choice C. Roger is suggesting that we're going to have to find additional energy sources in the region, but doesn't really address whether or not the electrical costs are going to rise. Pauline doesn't address this issue either, so this answer choice is simply unsupported by either. All right, so answer choice B is the right answer. And notice that this is an agree question. 13% of point questions are agree. And another way of thinking about that is 87% are asking you for what they disagree with each other about, while 13% of these point questions ask you what they agree with each other about. Okay, so it's fairly common. You want to be on the lookout for that switch. Not only do you want to be on the lookout for the switch between must be true and most supported, you also want to be on the lookout for the switch between agree versus disagree. So now looking at the trap answers that we looked at today, 42% of wrong answers are wrong because they're simply half scope. One person comes down on the issue, but the other person doesn't. 31% of answer choices are wrong because they're unsupported, meaning neither one of them agrees with that claim. 25% of wrong answers are wrong because both people would agree with the claim. And 2% of wrong answers are wrong because one person would agree and the other person would disagree. Now, this would only be wrong on questions when they're asking you for what they would agree with each other about. So the process, remember, for point questions is to look for overlapping statements, use that overlap to anticipate what that answer might sound like, then scan through the answer choices for the contending answer choices, and then use the agree-disagree test, meaning one person actively needs to agree with the claim while the other person doesn't, or actively disagrees with the claim. If the answer is that one person would agree but the other person doesn't address the issue, it's half scope. If one person would disagree but the other person doesn't address, it's half scope. Right? The answer needs to be yes to both on questions that are asking for what they disagree with each other about. If you're on an agree question, you can just simply twist this and make it an agree test, meaning both of them need to agree with this claim. If either one of them doesn't, it's not the point of agreement. The way you spot a point question is with the language within the question stem. You're looking for point at issue, disagree, or agree. The point types, remember 87% are asking for what they disagree with each other about. 13% are asking what they agree with each other about. The degree issue, 70% are asking for what is most supported by the statements, while 30% is asking for what must be the case based off of the statements. The trap answers you want to be looking out for are half scope, unsupported, something that they would both agree with or that one person would agree with while the other person would disagree with. And again, that is only true. That's only a trap when you're working on agree questions. So if you found this lesson helpful, I invite you to check out LSAT Lab. We have live online class 3 nights a week where you can come, ask questions, and learn about each of the different topics of the LSAT. We have a video lesson library where you can review whatever topic it is whenever you'd like. You can build a personalized plan or have us build it for you so that you can focus on just those topics that are going to have the biggest impact on your score. We've got a powerful question bank that allows you to find whatever type of question it is you're looking for at whatever type, whatever feature, at whatever difficulty level. And if you don't know what you're looking for, our advanced analytics will help you figure it out. So you can try it today for free at lsatlab.com. Finally, I invite you to check out some of these other lessons here on our YouTube channel.